So again, in this situation, we'll summarize what I did here. We had a minor progression, and I knew, and I just took 3 patterns, and that I could take, like I mentioned with my student, he didn't have to know theory to do this, to just take those patterns home and play with them. And this is key right here. This is a very key point, is that when you're talking about the pentatonic scale, you look at the difference between the 2 scales, because the Dorian mode, or the Dorian pattern, and the pentatonic pattern, you can see the differences in the notes, the extra notes that are in the Dorian pattern, and compare those 2 and play around with those different sounds, and it brings a lot more out of the practice that way. It makes it a lot more interesting.
Cool. Yeah, one thing I want to just add to what Randy is saying here is that, and this is something I think you'll find true when you get more into the advanced level, or if you pay really close attention to really good players, and that is, when you look at the difference between the 3 different patterns that Randy laid out, the minor pentatonic scale, the Dorian mode, and the diminished arpeggio, the obvious difference between those things are something that we can all see. One difference is that there's more notes in the Dorian mode than there is in the diminished arpeggio or in the pentatonic scale. Okay, that's an obvious difference. Another obvious difference is the notes themselves, of course, and the fingering for each one, of course, is different. Okay, these are the obvious things. But there are more differences besides just those, besides the notes and the fingering. And it really comes down to the way that players generally use those types of patterns or ideas. Okay? So a player who is very experienced with the pentatonic scale and does a lot of pentatonic playing is usually going to play in a certain way. Okay? There's going to be some things that those types of players do naturally or instinctively. All right? It's just part of the heritage in the tradition of pentatonic playing, whether it's blues or rock or whatever it is. Right? And also for the players that spend a lot of time working with modes and using the Dorian mode and other types of modes, they usually have different things in common in terms of the way that they apply those types of sounds. Okay? And then of course the diminished arpeggio, it has its own attribute which is different from the other 2. Right? Now, when we started this clinic tour, and Randy was playing these examples over the backing track, his playing was actually a little bit different then than it is now, because he's heard me say this over and over and over again. I think it's naturally crept into his little improv jams here. But basically, what Randy and many players would instinctively do is when playing pentatonic scales, they would play some linear lines, as Randy was showing you, 1 note at a time type of thing. And then they would do a lot of double stops, a lot of those cool intervallic things, playing in octaves, all the things that he was just doing. And then when he went to playing using the Dorian mode, those lines were usually more linear. Less double stops, very often none. And then when he played a diminished arpeggio, which the diminished arpeggio is naturally very tense. There's a lot of tension inherent in a diminished chord or a diminished arpeggio. Right? And what Randy would do instinctively is bring out that tension even further by adding other musical elements which add tension. And one of those things is to play it in a syncopated rhythm. If you noticed, when Randy played the diminished arpeggio, he didn't just play it in straight 8th notes or quarter notes or anything like that. A lot of those notes were syncopated. They were on the and of beats. They weren't on downbeats. So that added to the characteristic sound. And the point here for all of you is that once you learn, or if you already know the things that Randy's talking about, the arpeggio, the minor pentatonic pattern, and the Dorian pattern, and you get comfortable with that, and you can start to move from one idea to the next, the deeper level, the next thing that you would do after that is try to key in on what are the attributes, what are the things that is common in pentatonic playing that is not so common in using modal things or a diminished arpeggio. What are the attributes that good players use? And then those things can be combined. And Randy actually was combining some of those things while he was playing. So you could use syncopation even with something nice and easy and safe like the pentatonic scale. You're taking something you inherently instinctively do in one area and apply it to other areas. So obviously you have to be very comfortable with those different patterns that Randy pointed out. And then once you are, it's a matter of integrating those stylistic idiosyncrasies of those things together. So, cool.
I know that there's quite a bit of distance between us, and I've gotten a lot of questions through the clinics about the double stops and the intervals and how to use them. If you have any questions about it after the clinic, I'll be around. Feel free to ask me. I also have my website link. It's guitarpsycho.com. There, I have a newsletter that goes out that I actually put in free lesson videos into, and I have a video right now at the moment that's going out that's very similar, that's talking, it's called Expanding Your Options with Guitar Improvisations, exactly what the title of this is. I'm actually in the process of creating a video more on the double stops, because that seems like that's a big question that people have. They want to exploit that side of things a lot. So if that's something that interests you, go out to guitarpsycho.com, sign up for the newsletter, and I'll have your email address. I'll be able to actually send you a link to that so you can have access to that video, because I don't actually keep those up on my site. I like to give those to my newsletter subscribers so they can have that. So anyway, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Cool.